Hello, and welcome back to 50 States, 50 Murders, the podcast taking you, the listener, on an auditory road trip across all 50 states while we discuss 50 different murders. Thank you all for tuning in to episode 19. Dakota, where are we going to be traveling to today?
We're going to be traveling to Dekalb County, Georgia to discuss the murder of Derwin Brown.
So we had another week last week where we were quote unquote out of office. Just kind of wanted to recap on my trip here. I took a trip out to Colorado, as mentioned. If you have not checked it out yet, we did cover Colorado on our podcast back on episode 4. This listed as Dakota's number one state as far as desirability. I believe that episode also had your favorite case or one of your favorite cases. Is that correct?
At the time, yeah, I'd say we've had some good ones since, and this one has actually moved all the way up to number one for me. The one we're about to do.
Okay, okay, nice. All right, I'm excited to get into that. As far as your rankings, Colorado was episode 4. You gave it the one spot. Do you feel like maybe you used that one spot too early, or you feel pretty locked in on that one?
No, I'm pretty locked in there.
Okay. Well, I definitely would say that I feel confident that you would love Colorado. For anyone who hasn't been there, it's absolutely worth checking out. It's not what I was thinking it was going to be as far as like population goes. We were on the airplane and there were some people heading home to Colorado and they were saying, it's really busy, it's really populated, but I don't know if maybe we just weren't in the busy parts of town. I don't know, but I just felt like it was more of a low key, laid back feel. Everything kind of felt spread out. Definitely kind of had like I don't know, you're out in the West kind of vibe for sure. So I thought that was cool. Red Rocks, even better than I imagined it. It had like this magical feel to it. Kind of felt like a pilgrimage going out there and seeing a concert. I really enjoyed my time out there. Unfortunately, I was out there for 4 days and it only rained one of the 4 days. As you can imagine, of course, it rained on the day of the concert. So that was pretty cool. That's about my luck. I actually thought for a minute the concert was going to get canceled. I started thinking in my head, like, wow, imagine flying states away to see a concert that gets canceled. That was a real concern that I had. It was lightning really bad. They pushed it back a couple times and then they were like, come on in. We're going to try it. Had some really cool downtown experiences. And we went to this place called the Buckhorn Exchange. For season 2, I'm going to add that to our places to see, things to do. It's the oldest steakhouse in Denver. It's actually the oldest restaurant in Denver. Really cool. Food was great. And the whole entire place, like you walk around and like there's like tons of different rooms. In every room, there's like deer heads mounted on the wall. There's like elk, just like all these different animals hanging up on the wall, gun racks. Definitely a Wild West vibe. We hiked Mount Falcon. So that was a mountain that we were really close to. And, they talk about elevation, it's a mile high. And someone had asked us while we're out there, have you noticed the difference in elevation just yet? I said, no, honestly, we really haven't until we hiked this mountain. And let me just say, like every 5 minutes, we had to stop and take a break because we were just dying, sweating, couldn't breathe. You could really feel that difference in elevation. It was a totally different experience. We didn't really see any wildlife in Colorado, which was a little bit of a bummer. It wasn't like Montana or anything like that, but we did run into another Brittany in the
A
wild.
wild Brittany, damn, must have been a scary experience.
Yeah, so that was cool. If you're listening, you don't know what that is. The two dogs I have at home, they're both Brittany's. They're like a spaniel. Yeah, I'm walking up to this guy and I'm telling Gary, I'm like, man, that dog looks just like a Brittany. And I guess he heard me. He's like, it is. And then we just talked for like 10 minutes about his dog. Definitely a cool little animal to run into in the wild. We went to like the downtown Denver area. We got to see the stadium where the Denver Broncos played. And I think I might have jinxed them. I don't know, dude, because I come home and then they get a 70 piece dropped on them.
Well,
So
while you were there, they lost on the last play of the game, so
last on the
been
last
even
play of the
worse.
game, got a 70 piece
Got
dropped
a
on them.
threw a Hail Mary, got the Hail Mary, but missed the 2 point conversion to send to overtime.
I have no complaints about Colorado, no complaints about Denver, except for Denver Airport. Hope I never have to fly out of there again. Missed our flight, and I got to spend 10 hours in Denver Airport coming home. So I actually got to watch that Denver game at the airport. So that was really cool, a cool experience.
Did you explore the airport at all?
Oh,
See the
brother,
murals and all that?
there's like there was like three different like hubs, I guess you could call them. You had to jump on the subway and like to get to all of them, and we spent a lot of time in all of these hubs. I mean, we're just checking it out. Bars, restaurants, stores.
Huh. You didn't
We
take
found
any
like
pictures of the murals
I
of
had
the New
one.
World Order stuff.
Yeah, I had one, but it wasn't that cool. I didn't really see much of it. I don't know where you have to go because I feel like I was walked the whole thing. I don't know if they took it down. There was a lot of construction going on, so maybe that's why I couldn't find them. I only saw one little lizard, but nothing to write home about. The airport was
You didn't see
very
the famous one of the guy with the sword and the machine gun?
didn't see the sword, didn't see the horse. I don't know where
That's
these
out
things are at.
front. The horse is out front.
Didn't see it. I was out
Oh,
front. Didn't see it. I don't know. Yeah,
10 hours and you didn't see shit.
yeah. Yeah, so that's my only complaint. First time I ever missed a flight. It sucked. Do not recommend. If you get the chance to travel to Colorado, absolutely recommend it. If you haven't caught the episode against episode 4, definitely want to go back someday for sure. That's why we were out last week. Sorry about that, but we're back this week. This week's recommendation, it comes from Zach. So Zach asked us to cover his state of Georgia, which is where we're going to be this week. So a big thank you to Zach for this week's recommendation, as well as everyone who continues to follow along on TikTok. I posted my Colorado trip on my personal TikTok. I didn't post on the podcast page. I am going to do that. Again, you can follow us at 50 States, 50 Murders. You can suggest cases, states, questions, drop us a comment, any of that. It's greatly appreciated. So this week we're going to be departing from Pensacola, Florida. That's where we were for episode 18. And Dakota, as you mentioned, we're heading to Dekalb County, Georgia. Pensacola, Florida to Dekalb County, Georgia. It's a pretty short drive, my guy. It's a 4 hour, 334-mile drive. So this fictitious drive is pretty quick. Can make it in a day. We're going to be discussing the case of Derwin Brown. As we always do before jumping into this week's case, let's take a moment to learn a little bit about the state we're visiting, as well as some notorious murders that took place here in the state of Georgia. Georgia is nicknamed the Peach State. It's like a pretty cool nickname, pretty explanatory. I'm trying to like look into it, see exactly why, and basically it's just some dude long, long time ago threw some peach seeds down, and now they just go plentiful in Georgia, and supposedly peaches in Georgia taste better than peaches anywhere else. I'm gonna be honest with you, my guy. I don't like peaches, so I'm not really a good spokesperson for this. I've been to Georgia plenty of times, never had a peach from Georgia.
Maybe that's why you don't like peaches. You haven't tried one from Georgia.
Maybe. I mean, what about you? You a peach guy? You like peaches?
No, no, I'm
No,
not.
no. You got a favorite fruit? Something you like to dabble in? Like what state? If it was like a fruit state, like what state were you going to? You going to the strawberry state, the grape state?
The citrus state. I love oranges.
Oh, I'm pretty sure Florida is kind of recognized as the orange state in a way. Okay, as always, I like to throw the flags on the dock, which I'll throw on the TikTok as well. And Georgia's state flag, it's actually relatively newer in comparison to some other states. I can't figure out why they changed their state flag. I mean, maybe you could tell me why, but here's their new one. It's got their state seal. We got some stars, 13 stars. There's some red and white stripes. Wait, what are we thinking on the flag here before we move on? Like what this new flag that we're looking at? We like it, we don't like it. What's your opinion?
It's boring. I'll tell you that.
Oh, okay, boring.
It's got
Okay.
the seal in the flag. Boring, boring seal.
Seal kind of sucks. We've had some really cool seals. I haven't been like a huge fan of all the flags, but the seals we've looked at have been pretty cool. I feel like Georgia's probably like the most boring seal we've seen so far. State seal kind of sucks. But that being said, I threw on the pre 2003 Georgia flag.
Oh, okay.
Now, tell me in your personal opinion, what do you think about this one? You like this one? Is this more up your alley?
I
What
mean,
what do
I
you?
see, I see why it was taken out, huh?
Oh,
Well,
really? Why do you think it was taken out? What
oh,
are we
should we?
noticing?
You gonna include this in the TikTok? Yeah,
Georgia just has a straight up rebel flag, but then like on the side of it, I'm guessing that's like a okay, it's their state seal as
that's their
well.
seal. Yeah, so their
Yeah,
seal with the rebel flag. Yeah,
yeah. So I'm guessing that probably just over time they're like, you know what, probably should change that just a little bit. Yeah, we'll throw both of those on there. It's part of history. Hey, I'm sure there's a lot of people down there that still probably wave the old state flag.
I mean, wasn't it was Mississippi's flag up until recently? It was just
Yeah.
that, not even a
Yeah,
seal on
yeah,
it,
literally just
just
the
straight
old
up.
old rebel flag. Yep. All right, so I always like to do murder per capita. It's a murder podcast. So Georgia is coming in at 11 out of all 50 states for murder per capita. What do you think? Does that surprise you? Do you expect a little bit higher, or is that about what you would think?
That's about what I would think.
Yeah,
I know there's some really bad parts of Georgia.
I have family in Georgia. I've been to Georgia quite a bit. I got to say, all my experiences really solid, but I also don't think I've explored the lesser parts that you could be talking about. And one of those lesser parts would be good old College Park. Have
Oh
you ever heard
yeah,
of
that's
College Park?
where they chop cars. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. So this is recognized as Georgia's most dangerous city per the Southwestern Journal. College Park CP has a population of 15,204 people. Violent crimes per 100K, there's 1,756. Property crimes per 1,000 people, 6,143. So College Park's interesting. Remember, like on the video games when we were kids, like Roller Coaster Tycoon, where you could like pick up a guest and you can just like drop them in a part of the park.
Yeah.
All right, so like fictitiously, if like drop you into College Park, how long do you think you'd last? You think you could go 24 hours
Um,
unscathed? Just
damn. I don't know. I think I have a rare chance there than some of the other cities we've covered.
yeah, yeah. I think you'd be all right. I think you could go 24 hours. I got faith in you. I think you could do it. As far as geographic location, again, I'm feeling like this is just like Florida. I think everyone knows where Georgia's at, but just in case you don't really know how to work a map, it's in the southeastern region. I feel like this whole podcast we've really just spent 90% of our time in the southeast region. We've been down here. I think we've covered them all except for I don't know. I feel like we've covered them all. So this might be our last one in the southeastern region. Above Florida, to the left of Georgia is Alabama. To the right, South Carolina. And above, we have Tennessee and just the tip of North Carolina. You ever been to Georgia?
No,
That's false. You actually have been.
no.
We did have to run Alexis to the airport in Savannah,
Oh
Georgia.
yeah, I was in Savannah. Yeah,
Yeah,
the very tip of Georgia.
the very tip. And speaking of Savannah, we were there for a day. I did want to make mention when we discussed South Carolina, Charleston was listed as the most prettiest state in the United States, or prettiest city in the United
Yeah.
States. Savannah was actually number two as far as prettiest cities. I don't really feel like me and you got an overwhelming time spent there. It was more so like
We
drop off
dropped
and
her off and then left.
get right
So
back.
no.
But I mean, I will say it was a cool drive. I mean, nothing out of the ordinary. So it was pretty cool. So I wouldn't mind next time I'm in Georgia, maybe making it to Savannah for a little bit. Before we jump into some places to see, things to do, I did receive an anonymous request from a person who lives and pays their taxes in the peach state of Georgia. They were asking if we could just take a moment to just badmouth and disrespect the University of Georgia, the Bulldogs. I got to be honest with you, man. It's kind of difficult when this specific team has won back to back national titles in college football. That all that being said, I feel like I was okay with Georgia up until last year. It might not be like the most heartbreaking loss I've ever experienced, but I think it was in the fashion that this happened that it just makes it so heartbreakingly special. We were here at my house for New Year's Eve, where Ohio State was playing Georgia. And what an experience this was for everybody involved. Experience for the whole state, honestly. Um, Leading up to the end of the game, we have a field goal to knock off Georgia, advance the national title. They're lining up for the kick. The ball's literally dropping. Snap goes.
It's on the way. No good. He hooked it.
Kick is as far left as you could possibly be. Happy New Year.
Way to
Just,
start off the new year.
I mean, we literally the kick was in sync with the ball dropping. So everyone's like, hugging, and you have to do your little kiss. And I'm gonna say that they're just dirty. They're cheaters. That was a really dirty hit that they had on us. I guess this is a murder podcast, right? So I mean, there is like allegedly maybe a little bit of a vehicular homicide murder that may have happened last year. I don't know why I said allegedly because it really did happen. I mean, a little off season incident that may
You
have
act,
involved
you
some.
act like he, you act like you ran him off the road on purpose.
Hey, I mean, he may have been under the influence a little bit. I mean,
Yeah,
hey,
little street racing.
yeah, hey, that was. I feel like that was a little bit swept under the rug. So I think there's some shady things going on down there potentially. Not a whole lot I can really come up with to say, but I did want to just recognize our anonymous source, and thanks for tuning in.
I think we're gonna see a different Georgia here in a couple weeks when they finally play someone who is good at football.
So we're gonna jump over to some things to do, places to see, and I switched this up a little bit this week. Usually, what I do, try to come up with 3 to 4 things that I think would be interesting, or I don't want to overdo it on this little segment that we got here, but because I've been here a few times, I went ahead and included things I've already done and seen that I just really enjoyed and would recommend other people. My first thing I got here is just simply a day in downtown Atlanta. With this little day trip, I have the Coca-Cola factory to kick us off. I know I like to try to sway you into visiting these states with this little segment here. I know you're not a pop drinker. You've been sober for how long now?
Willingly, what's 12 years?
Oh, okay. So pop free for 12 years. That's congratulations. That's a big deal, my guy. Probably wouldn't be too interested in this, but like either way, nonetheless, I just feel like maybe like the history aspect. I mean, Coca-Cola is kind of like a big deal here. You walk through the factory, it's basically like a museum of Coca-Cola, facts and tidbits and all this stuff. And anyways, the last room that you get to before you leave, it's just a huge room of like fountain drinks. And it's no additional charge. You get like cups and you can just get all these different drinks to your little heart's desire. For whatever it's worth, people will talk about McDonald's having the best Coke. There's like levels to this, but the Coke that you drink at the Coca-Cola factory is just top tier, 10 out of 10. Greatest Coke you'll ever have. Greatest Coca-Cola you'll ever have.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola factory is a must see if you're ever in Atlanta. If you're ever in Georgia, the next thing I have here is the Atlanta Aquarium. So I got to check this out last time I was in Georgia. This place is awesome. This is something that you would really enjoy. There's everything you could possibly imagine. And they just have like this huge tank, and you just jump on like this escalator platform, and it just takes you on through. There's some pictures on there. I'll throw it in the TikTok. I mean, there's just full grown sharks, sea turtles, all kinds of stuff. There's dolphins.
Yeah, so it's actually the Georgia Aquarium. I don't mean to correct you since you've been there, but it's in Atlanta, but it's called the Georgia Aquarium.
I
And it
appreciate
is the
that.
largest aquarium in the world.
Yeah, and I believe that too. Well, I think the one,
Actually, no. One just got built recently, I think in Dubai, maybe.
yes, correct. Yeah, so it's the second biggest, but it's it's massive. It's definitely worth checking out. Even if you scratch the Coca-Cola factory to go to this, I'd take this over the Coke factory. But if you can do both, do it. And then lastly, we have lunch at the Varsity. The Varsity is really cool. It's like a staple down there. It's coney dogs, it's burgers, it's fast food. It's not like anything necessarily to absolutely write home about, but I think it's more so just the experience. So that would be my first thing that I would recommend for everyone. Just a day in Atlanta, Georgia. Lots of things to do, lots of things to see, even more than just the three things that I listed here. Next up, we have the Battery. Are you familiar with this? Have you heard of it?
No, never have.
This was really awesome when I went down there last time. My family kept saying, like, oh, you got to check out the Battery. No idea what they're talking about. It's best way I can explain it is it's like a village. It's like so they built the new Atlanta Braves baseball field in this area, and then they took the entire surroundings and just built like a village out of it. So there's condominiums for people to live in, restaurants, bars, entertainment, and it's just so clean. It's just really nice. It's laid out really well. Me and Alexis were walking down there, and like there's people like actually cleaning the streets, sweeping. I think for us, like we go to a Indians game, Guardians game, what have you. Homeless people peeing on the corner, sleeping, begging for money, trash overflowing. Just good old Cleveland. The smells, you got to take it all in. So you go to this area right here, and it's just very clean, very nice. I would highly recommend this area to anybody. There's lots to do there. I didn't get to catch a game. Hopefully next time I can. I mean, the Braves are a solid team, so that alone makes it exciting. But the Battery is definitely a go-to for Georgia if you're there.
Yeah, that sounds like something we got going on here at the Hall of Fame. Have you been by the Football Hall of Fame recently?
I have not, but yeah, I think that's a really good way to sum it up. It's kind of like they call it the Hall of Fame Village, right?
Yeah, so this morning I've lived in Canton or by there for a year now. Today was the first time I've ever missed my exit because it was so busy. So I had to drive all the way around and past the village, and I haven't been there in a while. I live 2 miles away from there, but I haven't been there in a while. But it is insane, like all the stuff they're building.
Mhm.
Like this was 7 this morning, and there's construction crews everywhere already working and stuff. Yeah, they're building something just like this. They the stadium that they rebuilt a few years back, and then they're just building stuff around it. Water park. They're gonna have an interactive building. Everything in there is gonna be like interactive. They're gonna have the hotel and a couple other things that are NFL related, like a assisted living kind of thing for former players, refs, stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely. That's cool. Yeah, so same idea, pretty much. Go down here, catch a Braves game, and then maybe get some dinner and just kind of enjoy the area. Last thing I got here for Georgia, it's Stone Mountain. Stone Mountain is near Atlanta, and it's one of the largest single masses of exposed granite in the world. So you're looking at these photos right now. I don't think the pictures do it justice, honestly, but it's really cool. I had a little story I wanted to share. When I was a lot younger, I was probably like 6 or 7. I was down here, and we went to Stone Mountain one night, and they were doing a laser show. You got your blanket, you're sitting down on the lawn, and you're just facing this big rock mountain. Lasers going crazy, lasers going everywhere. I don't know why I separated myself, but I got up, and then I couldn't find my parents, and I found who I thought to be my aunt. So I thankfully, like relieved, I ran up to her because I couldn't find anybody, tugged on her dress because I'm like, hey, I need help, where are my parents? And then this person turns around, and it's definitely not my aunt. Just looked like her from behind. So ran around for like another 10 minutes, crying, scared, and then ended up finding my parents. I would like to go back to Stone Mountain someday, but not crying. Story aside, Stone Mountain is really cool. It's a sight to see. Highly recommended for sure. I would throw that up there as a thing to do if you're ever in Georgia. I have one last thing here. This is a little different because I haven't been here. All these things I've done myself, but this I had to include because it's number one on my sports bucket list, and that's Augusta, the Masters at Augusta, Georgia, major that they play once a year in PGA, and more honestly, it's just an awesome, beautiful golf course. Would love to go here someday and see it. I know you're not personally a golf guy yourself. What do you think about Augusta? Any interest whatsoever?
I would go there if it was free, because I know them tickets are expensive. I actually know someone who got free tickets. I think 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago to go, all free.
Yeah, free
So
tickets are
that's
the
that's
move.
one way I'd go.
Would you? So I feel like you got two options when you go to a golf event, I guess you'd call it. You can either set up shop on a hole and then you get to see every golfer come to that specific hole, or you can pick a specific golfer and then you basically just tail the golfer so you can see every single hole. So it's like, do you want to see every golfer once or do you want to see every hole? But what would you do? You following a golfer or are you just picking a hole and chilling out?
These days, I would just pick a hole and chill out. I mean, maybe like a prime tiger, I'd follow him. I'd be like the rest of the people follow Tiger around. A golfer, I would really follow around like that. I liked what we did at Firestone when we set up on the one hole, had front row seats, and we were like arm distance away from Tiger, Phil. That was pretty cool.
Our guy Justin got left hanging. That was pretty cool. There's some things to do, places to see, and then I just had to throw my bucket list in there for Augusta. If you're listening to this, if you've ever been to Augusta, let us know and let me know if it's worth being the top of my number one on bucket list, or if I need to change that. If it's not worth it, if you went and you thought it wasn't as great as it looks on TV, let me know. We're going to talk about some famous murders in the state of Georgia, and then we're going to jump into our case, which you have mentioned is potentially your favorite case that we've covered so far.
We're going to start off with the most infamous serial killer in Georgia's history. He was not actually convicted of the murders that made him famous, but Wayne Williams is to believe to have killed 24 to 30 children between 1979 and 1981, but was found after he made a mistake in 1981, where his spree of murdering children was over and he moved on to adults. So police were surveilling a river that some of the bodies of the children had been found in when they heard a loud splash. So when they raced towards it, they ran into Williams driving off, and he was questioned, released. But 2 days later, a body was found in the river, which police believe was the sound that they heard. And it was a 27-year-old man who was last seen with Williams. And to this day, he's still appealing that conviction. So he's got a parole hearing in 5 years again because he just got denied a few years ago. So 5 more years, he's gonna appeal his conviction still. He was never convicted of the murder of the children. It's called
Yeah,
the Atlanta child murders.
that'll be denied once again 5 years
Yeah,
from now.
for sure. Next up, we got a guy also known as the Stocking Strangler. Carlton Michael Gary was known for killing elderly women. He was convicted of 8 murders, but it's believed that there might be more. He would strangle his victims, most times using stockings. He chose elderly women because his end goal was robbery. He would do other stuff messed up, but he would rob them in the end. And that's how he was eventually caught. He was robbing stores, banks, and then he got caught doing that. Fingerprints led back to those crime scenes. So he got caught robbing and ended up being a serial killer in the end.
Are we talking like Christmas stockings or are we just talking like socks?
Socks.
Oh,
Like
okay, cool. I was gonna say if he's
elderly.
going around like with some Christmas stockings, that'd be crazy.
Nah, that would have to be on our Christmas ode.
Right.
So lastly, I got a woman. I don't know if you've ever heard of a murderer getting off because they were depressed, but
Oh,
with Terry Rachels, she was a nurse in the 80s who was accused of injecting 6 patients with heart-stopping drugs that eventually led to their deaths. She was charged with 20 counts of aggravated assault, but then 19 of them were dropped because in her defense came up with she was depressed and didn't know what she was doing. So she ended up only serving 17 years in prison for 1 count of aggravated assault and was released in 2003.
wow. I've that's the first time I ever heard of that defense. I would think a lot more
It
people would be
works.
getting off.
So yeah, I don't know why more people haven't used that.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's depressed. That's crazy. Okay. Three pretty interesting famous murders, and we got the stocking killer to add to our unique nickname list. as we continue, this is part of the episode where we're going to give you our case of the week, and that's going to be the case of Derwin Brown. Dakota, you said that you were pretty excited about this specific case, so go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, so on the night of December 15th, 2000, Phyllis Brown and her son were at home on a rainy night awaiting the arrival of her husband, who had just been out with them celebrating her birthday, but he drove home separately. During this time, she heard what sounded like firecrackers coming from outside and then quickly realized that it was actually gunshots. So her son raced to call 911, and after hearing a car speed away, she ran outside to see what happened. This is where she found her husband, Derwin, lying on the ground with a bouquet of roses scattered around him that he had just picked up for her birthday. His body was riddled with bullet holes. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late to save his life as he was shot over 10 times.
Oh man, it almost sounds like a scene out of Dark Knight. Almost, you got your body, roses scattered around. We're off to an interesting start. So Derwin Brown was a 46-year-old who was a prominent figure within the community. He served as a youth counselor for troubled teens. Being a dad of 5 himself, he knew the importance of having a strong parental presence in a child's life. He was also one of the first ever Black patrol officers, which was huge in a place that was 90% white. He spent 23 years in the police department before he decided to take the next step in his career. This is where he decided to run for sheriff, a spot that was held by another African American male, Sidney Dorsey, for the previous 4 years. Dorsey became known for being one of the lead detectives responsible for bringing down Wayne Williams, as mentioned in our famous cases. So, Dakota, nice little tie in there. Well done. Despite this, Dorsey didn't believe Williams was involved in the Atlanta child murders, so he created a task force in 1996 trying to find out who, in fact, did these murders. Although he never proved the person responsible, he was elected sheriff.
And I want to say that that was completely unintentional. I did the famous murders. Wayne Williams was at the top of every single list. And then I was going through other murders that were heavily covered in Georgia, came across this. And it wasn't until like halfway through that came up. And I'm like, holy shit, what a wild tie in.
Yeah, hey, nicely done. Give yourself a pat on the back.
So the race between Dorsey and Brown was very tight, but against all odds, Derwin Brown won the election to become the new sheriff of Dekalb County. He was set to be sworn in just 3 days before his murder. The nature of the murder, investigators knew right away it was personal. Shooter came from behind with a Tech 9, shot Brown 3 times in the back before standing over him while he was on the ground and unloading the rest of the 12-bullet magazine. The suspect list, however, was very large. Brown was responsible for putting away a lot of drug dealers and gang members because he was all about cleaning up the city. This gained him even more enemies within the department. It's very well known that there was a lot of corruption from within the police department, and that was the driving factor for Brown running for sheriff. He promised to clean up the department, put an end to all this corruption. After the election, he was swift with the changes. Immediately notified over 30 people in the department that their last day would be the day that he was sworn in.
So he's coming in to clean up house. He's rubbing a lot of people the wrong way internally. And I think something we can all agree on when you have someone like a police officer, like you said, obviously the suspect list is going to be enormous with all the people you've done wrong or thought to have done wrong because you took him off the streets and put him behind bars. So yeah, that's
for sure. 23 years he spent on the drug task force and all that. So
yeah, that's 23 years of making enemies on the street. So yeah, that would be very hard to come up with the list. Okay. So among those 30 people plus, there was a man by the name of Patrick Cuffey. He was a police officer who was already on the radar. While Brown was campaigning and going door to door, he realized he was being followed by Cuffey and shortly after assigned a security detail to follow him. On the night of Derwin's murder, the tail on Cuffey was lost because he knew he was being watched. He had been made, so he backed off, raising more suspicions towards him. Still, there was no evidence that could link him to this specific case.
There was no evidence linking anyone to the case, so there was no witnesses, and then the heavy rain that I mentioned that night washed away any other clues that could have been provided. Months went by before anything came of this case, and it came from an incident that was actually unrelated to Derwin's murder. So in the March of 2001, Patrick Cuffey, previous person of interest that you just mentioned, was involved in a shootout at his home that resulted in the death of one person and another injury. Cuffey got involved with a bad crowd. It was a drug deal gone bad, ended in him just murdering someone. So investigators used this opportunity to press Cuffey for information on the murder of Derwin Brown.
With this, there was a pretty insane trade-off, but a lesser charge than murder was promised if he talked, and that's exactly what he did. He admitted that he was involved in the planning of taking out Derwin, and he acted as the getaway driver and backup shooter. He also listed 3 other people who were involved: Melvin Walker, a deputy in the sheriff's office, as well as Dave Ramsey and Paul Skyers, who all 3 were on the list of people who were set to be fired when Brown took office. Shortly after the murder, all 4 of the men were interrogated, as was everyone on the list of firings, and they all had the same alibi. They were together thinking of the next move after being without jobs. Now we know what the next move was.
Then came the big reveal. Cuffey admitted that the 4 men were set in motion to kill Derwin Brown by Sidney Dorsey, the man who lost the sheriff race months prior. Dorsey promised the 4 of them their jobs back if they killed Brown, because without an opponent, he would in turn win a special election. The meeting went down like some shit straight out of a movie. 4 of them met at Dorsey's house where he wrote down the plan on a piece of paper. Skyers was going to be the getaway driver. Walker was going to be the shooter, while Cuffey and Ramsey were like the backup guns. After letting them all read the little note, Dorsey took the piece of paper and ate it, leaving no paper trail, literally.
All 5 men were arrested and charged for the murder. Cuffey only served a couple years since he struck the deal, allowing the case to be solved. He ended up in the news in 2005 when he was shot working a security job in the Virgin Islands. Fortunately or unfortunately, he did survive. Skyers also talked since he was the only driver. He was let off easy.
The other 3, Dorsey, Walker, and Ramsey, were serving life in prison for murder and conspiring with the murder of Derwin Brown. Dorsey, however, got some additional charges. His trial turned into a whole other mess as his corruption from the office was brought into light. He had people coming forward accuse him of sexual abuse, like secretaries and stuff like that. And then out of nowhere, a RICO case got pinned against him. So Ramsey and Skyers, they weren't sheriffs, but they were part of a fake security firm that Dorsey had put together, where he got them paid using taxpayer money to work security for him, when in reality there was no job at all. So even without the murder charge, Dorsey was going to spend the rest of his life in prison.
Wow.
So that's the end of that case. But unrelated or maybe related, no one knows to this day, but Sidney Dorsey Jr., the son of Sidney Dorsey, the one that set all this in motion, was killed in 2018. So maybe the Brown family did their thing. I don't know. It hasn't been solved to this day.
Wow. Okay. That's extremely interesting. I purposely went into this because I know you were really excited about this case, texting back and forth. I purposely didn't look into this because it's like I almost wanted to hear about it for the first time as the listeners do. And that is a crazy case. You kind of hit it on the head when you said this is out of a movie, because I feel like I've seen Netflix movies that are just like this, easily related. This would definitely make for a good movie. That's
maybe some are based on it. And
that's crazy. I'm surprised that there isn't a movie out about this. It's a true story. That's the craziest part about it.
so I have a little trivia question I wanted to ask to end things. So
Okay.
This was, I guess you could classify this as a political assassination.
Sure.
Dorsey or Brown was killed by a guy he was running against in
an
a
election
political
for-
race.
Yeah.
So this happened December 15th, 2000. Do you happen to know the last political assassination in our country.
Oh man. Does assassination actually mean that the person was murdered or can you survive?
No, no.
Last time they
Yeah, you got to be killed to be assassinated, my guy.
that's what I thought. I just was wanting to make sure. Oh man. Was it Kennedy?
No, there's actually been a bunch since Kennedy.
Okay. Enlighten me. I'm a little bit unsure on this one. What do we got?
So it was a murder we talked about. The murder of Tommy Burks, who was a state senator who was killed by his political opponent in the 1998 Senate race in Tennessee by a
Oh,
guy named
was that our guy No Tax?
Brian Low Tax Looper. Yep.
Let's go. Okay, okay.
Yep. So before Brown, the last person to be killed was Tommy Burks by Low Tax.
Oh, we're big supporters of low tax on this podcast. It's awesome. It's a place I've been a few times and just a cool state all around. What an awesome little case we had this week. I really enjoyed that. Nicely done. I like the tie-ins that you had. I like the little twist at the end there and the little political assassination. That was masterful, my guy. I like that. So as we recap the state of Georgia, all things discussed, I wanted to throw it back to you. I wanted to know where you rank Georgia on your list of 1 through 49, but also I'm kind of curious to ask you as we looked into the state. I kind of mentioned just some things I've already done. Is there anything in Georgia that you came across that you thought would be kind of cool to see someday, or maybe something that I missed? What did you think about the things I suggested? Where are we at?
Um, no, you touched on some pretty popular things.
Okay.
Number one for me, of course, the Georgia Aquarium, biggest aquarium in the U.S. You mentioned they have, well, they have multiple tanks, but the one big tank, 6.3 million gallons. They got a damn whale shark in there. Those things are huge. I that might be maybe the one to buy, but that's the only whale shark in a aquarium. I'm pretty sure. So I would definitely love to go there. I love my aquariums. Thinking about getting mine going back. I don't know. It took a lot out of me when I spent over $1,000 on a saltwater aquarium and the fish all died within a couple
Right.
months. Um, Other than that, I mean, not too much to visit there, but that is pretty high on my list. So
Okay.
let me give my ranking now. Um, I don't think this is top 10, man. Anyway, I'm gonna have to put this at maybe 13.
13. Lucky number
Yeah,
13. They have Georgia has 13 stars on their state flag. So I'd say that's pretty fitting. Way to like tie it back in all over again. Unintentional tie-ins are pretty crazy today. 13 on the state of 1 through 49. Well, hopefully you get to make it down there someday. Well, technically you already have, but hopefully you get to stay a little bit longer next time. Yeah, I gotta throw this out there real quick. Uh may or may not drop an episode next week. I'm gonna be traveling again. I'm gonna be heading to New York for a mini trip. So I'm
this
definitely
fucking
gonna
guy's just traveling the world.
just travel in the world. So I'm gonna,
Holy shit, dude! This is like 5 vacations this year.
man, I'm telling you, it's getting to be a bit much, huh? Definitely gonna try my hardest to make it back and get something put out there for you guys. Maybe we'll cover the state of New York. That being said, as we depart from the state of Georgia in conclusion of episode 19 of 50 States, 50 Murders, we want to continue thanking you, the listener, for tuning in each and every week as we continue covering a new state as well as a murder case that happened to take place there.
If you've not already, please be sure to follow and subscribe and tune in to our next episode of episode 20, whenever the hell this guy decides he wants to stop traveling.